Hello, everybody. This is the Authority Podcast presented by Minority Authority Brand. My name is Darnell. Um, a while back, I read a book called Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And for this episode, what I wanted to do was take a concept out of the book and basically speak about it a little bit. Um, what is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the mind's ability to segment things we do versus how we perceive ourselves. Surely none of us believes ourselves to be completely infallible, but most people believe that they are decent people. Now, keep in mind when I talk about decent people that I'm talking about people's perceptions of themselves and not necessarily how the world is. We all know that the world is a fucked up place, and if the world aligned with how people thought of themselves, it wouldn't be a bad place. So we know that there's some correction there, or we know that there's some inconsistency there. But for this podcast, I'm just talking about how people perceive themselves. Sorry. So when decent people do things that are not so decent, it eats at their conscience. As irrational as it may seem, abusers, slaveholders, rapists, kidnappers, unrepentant capitalists, they all believe themselves to be good God-fearing Christians or whatever their religion is. I'm pretty sure that they believe that they're doing gods or Allahs or whoever your God is. They believe that they're doing their work. I mean, if you tell a lie long enough, you know the saying, it becomes true. And this is the dissonance. The dissonance in this case is when your personal moral code does not align with your actions. And when your moral code does not align with your actions, people will do one of two things. Own up to the action and address the harm caused by it, or justification of the action without admitting any wrongdoing. In the most egregious cases, the perpetrator may go as far as dehumanizing or demonizing the victims. This is taken from the Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome book. So, I have a question for you. Which route do you think America took in terms of owning up to its past? It's an easy question, so I'll let you figure that out. But I have a few examples that I want to use to drive my point home. Trayvon Martin, y'all know the incident happened in, I think, 2012 or 2013. I'm sure y'all aware of it. Whenever things were being sorted out in terms of how the incident occurred and what took place afterwards, the national media circulated a picture of Trayvon Martin smoking weed. The accused, George Zimmerman, turned out to be the real criminal, and for a number of reasons, which we know, but I'll go into them. He stalked and killed a 17-year-old kid when it was discovered that he, George Zimmerman, was the aggressor. He had later incidents in which he was in a road rage incident with the guy who pulled a gun on him, or he put a gun on him, I'm not too sure. Also, his ex-wife in another incident alleged that he assaulted her father and pulled a shotgun on her. He attempted to sue the Martin family in 2019, which was just dismissed in February of 2022. He also sold things to make a mockery of the killing of Trayvon Martin. All of this I'm sure you're aware of, but I bring it up to remind us, when this incident happened, what did the media report on George Zimmerman? I don't recall them reporting much on his past criminal acts, but if he got into that much trouble that soon after the incident, surely there were things that happened before then. A story about Tamir Rice's father's criminal record was published just hours before the shooting video was released to the public of Tamir Rice. The Northeast Ohio Media Group, who's responsible for Cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer, published a story that pointed out that he had multiple convictions for abuse of women, Tamir's father. Tamir's mother's previous criminal run-ins were mentioned as well. Chris Quinn, the vice president of the media group, mentioned one way to stop police from killing any more 12-year-olds might be to understand the forces that lead children to undertake behavior that could put them in the sights of police guns. Knowing details about the child's background can shed further light on why this 12-year-old was waving a weapon around a public park. Bullshit, but okay. Isaiah Gregg was a kid that fell into a gorilla exhibit in the Cincinnati Zoo in 2016. And as a result, the gorilla had to be killed. Harambe was the gorilla's name. I'm pretty sure y'all heard or remember that story also. The interesting thing with this one is that the news outlet, the Daily Mail, which is a far-right outlet and probably mostly for propaganda anyway, made mention of the 3-year-old's father's criminal record, who wasn't even at the park with his son that day. Now, I say that to say this. 5 years before the incident at the Cincinnati Zoo, a guy in Zanesville, Ohio, about 2 hours from Cincinnati, a convicted criminal possessing guns illegally, was permitted to keep over 50 exotic animals at a private residence in a residential area. After numerous violations in a prison stint, upon release from prison, he kills himself, but right before he do it, he releases the animals into the community. Do you think they looked at his father's criminal record? No, because it was of no significance. He was 63 at the time, so his father had probably passed on. But once again, he was 63, not 17 like Trayvon, not 12 like Tamir, and not 3 like Isaiah. But if you can villainize the victim, it is harder for them, the victim, to garner sympathy. You see, if white people, for instance, can empathize with the possibility of harm and or killing of your children for something as harmless as walking through a neighborhood with a hoodie on or playing with a toy gun in a park, then they are forced to come to the realization that this too could happen to them and their children. But if we can just think of reasons for why it might happen to them on the other side of town, we'll sleep a little better believing that we are not as criminal, as dangerous, or as disrespectful to authority as those people. This is cognitive dissonance. Believing yourself to be an upstanding person who is immune to denigration, knowing full and well that the people on the other side of town are catching hell for no other reason than who they are and what they look like. And you may never voice this, but inside you know that how you're living doesn't jive with how you feel. Now, to drive the point home even further, about 6 months ago, a 17-year-old white kid in Akron had a fake gun, was driving around with his buddies at night, and shooting it at people. He got beat to death. Those boys who beat him and killed the kid were arrested and charged. Public outcry was widespread. The paper said that it was unjustified. The papers who wrote about how well he was liked by his peers, so the papers wrote how well he was liked by his peers. The plain dealer, the one that suggested we look at Tamir Rice's home life to see what will possess him to wave a fake gun in a park, did not suggest this for the kid, the 17-year-old white kid who was killed in Akron, just 40 miles away. Surely the plain dealer reported on it. You can Google it if you want to see it. Why hasn't the paper brought up the parent's criminal record, if they had one? What about his home life? Why wasn't that examined for it to be read in a paper? What will possess a 17-year-old kid to drive around the city at night shooting at people? That's worth examining. Where's the picture of him smoking weed? Surely he's done something bad in his life. There's no one walking the face of the earth today who hasn't sinned. It doesn't matter. But fair is fair. So I want to leave you with a quote because I like philosophers. I read a lot of philosophy. It helps me understand things. It kind of helps me cope with life a little better. So I'll read one or two. The first one from Dr. Cornel West, who y'all have heard me quote before. He said, trying to adjust yourself, you end up well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference. Some of us just want to be free. The last quote that I'll leave you with, I'm not too sure who wrote it, but I'll say it. He said, there's no healthy way to integrate into a sick society. Learn the rules to play the game better. And that way you're not left dumbfounded about things that seem commonsensical. That is my podcast on cognitive dissonance. Like and subscribe if you will, if you like it. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. The Minority Authority brand. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll have a good holiday. And that's my podcast. Thank you.